Hey, we're live.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Carolyn Doobie, and I am a field CTO here at Cloudera. And I'm pleased to be doing something a little bit different here tonight for our meetup. Normally, we have the Hello series of meetups and other various types of meetups. But tonight, it is all about young people and the future of our industry. Tonight, I have two amazing young people with me here, and I guess I'm a little bit biased because one of them is my kid. But I can say that that Helena, who is my coworker, John Kuchmick's daughter, is equally amazing as well. So we're really excited to talk to you tonight to hopefully get you excited about tech. So Carson is going to talk about some of the careers. So Carson is a student at Northeastern University, and they're going to talk about some kinds of different career options that you might have in video game design. Very cool. I'm sure that the kids that are out there that are watching are probably excited about video games. And Helena is going to show a demo of Ni-Fi running on a Raspberry Pi. Now, these are both amazing things to talk about, and we're hoping to get you excited about these types of careers in tech. So Helena and John, you want to say hello real quick?
Hi.
So you want to, how about you give an intro of, what grade you're in, what you do in school? Yeah, how about that?
I'm 13. I'm in 8th grade. What do you mean? Like, what do I do in school?
I don't know, man. Like, what are you interested in? What's your favorite subjects? How about that?
Oh, math and science are my favorite subjects.
Awesome. And I think Helena is probably the only 13-year-old. Now I'm probably going to get myself into trouble about this, but probably the only 13-year-old that I know that can spell Ni-Fi and has any idea what a Raspberry Pi is. So, I think this is amazing. It's fun stuff, and I think that you guys will really like it. So we're going to have a little bit of introduction. We are going to talk about, why are we here? Why are we doing this type of meetup? And then Carson and I will have a little interview about Northeastern and what the game development program is like there. Then we will have Helena and John rejoin again. We'll have a little question and answer. So if you want to ask some questions about game development, if you're in LinkedIn, you can just type the questions into the chat. If you're in YouTube, there is a link to a Slido. So you can just put that link into your browser, and you can ask a question there as well. And you can also upvote the questions that you want to hear the answers to. So we'll have a little bit of interview, a little bit of Q&A, and then we'll move to John and Helena. Helena will do her demo of Ni-Fi and the Raspberry Pi, and we'll have a little bit of question and answer, and then we will adjourn for the night. So love to hear from all of you. We're going to start off with just a little bit of introduction. So why are we here? So the mission of Cloudera is to make data and analytics accessible to everyone. And this is, as we go forward into the future, data and analytics are already very important. But as we go forward, having access to data and being able to analyze it and extract out the interesting bits from it and the actionable insights is going to be increasingly important as we get into, especially after COVID, all of the move to online and more digital experiences makes data more and more important. And it's going to be really important for everyone to be able to use data, to be able to interpret it, whether you're a technologist or not. A lot of industries involve tech, even if you're not specifically a programmer or developer or one of the quote unquote nerds. So we want everybody to at least be able to interpret data, to understand how to look at data and how to use it. So we have, why are we here in terms of talking about this particular subject? So if you look at the tech field as a whole, we have a diversity challenge. So many of our, if you look at the tech industry as a whole, it's very heavily male. And this is a problem because it takes all types of diverse thought to produce products that are really useful and really good products. So if you're developing products for women and the products are developed by an entire team of men, it might not be the best product, right? And we want to have all of those different diverse viewpoints. And it's not always easiest to have all of these diverse viewpoints because diverse viewpoints have different points of view. But it does lead to better products and better relationships with customers. So, having a company that understands all of the customers that it can have and has people that can relate to them is super, super important. We've also found that as girls get older, you kind of have to get the girls in middle school and get them interested in tech. And then, that will be more likely to go on a tech track. So, but again, as I said, technology and understanding data is super important, no matter whether you're going into marketing or if you're going into a tech field or if you're going into science or engineering. It's important to be able to have those types of skills. So on that note, we have a new book. It's called A Fresh Squeeze on Data, and it's all about data literacy. You can see the URL there on the screen, and I encourage you to go there, check it out, download it. You can take it out and try and get more in the know about data. So. I think I said everything. The Slido, we talked about the Slido. We have that on. And so I'm going to bring Carson on here and we're going to talk a little bit about yourself. So tell us about yourself.
Well, my name is Carson. As previously stated, I use they, them pronouns because I identify as non-binary. And even though we're celebrating Day of the Girl here, we decided that we want to include non-binary people and all sorts of people who don't fit into the typical binary gender area into this day to celebrate sort of diversity in the workplace, especially in tech. And I go to Northeastern. I am a major in game design there, and I really like school so far. I'm only a second year, so it's not like I've done a whole lot yet, but I have in a way done a lot. In just like learning like the very basics of like what game design is going to be like for the rest of my life. And besides that, I like to have fun. I like to hang out with friends, and I like to be around people. That's really what makes me happy.
That's great. So when did you first know that you wanted to be a game designer?
So when I was growing up, my lovely mother here, she didn't really let me play a lot of video games at all.
Honestly, I was not. I played video games as a kid, but I was not a big fan of video games, mostly because Carson was very busy with school, and video games can be a little bit addictive. And also, I would go to parties, and the kids would be sitting there with their video game consoles, and they'd all be playing video games sitting in the same room, not talking to each other. So anyways, so Carson has managed to make me, I would still say I'm really
She
terrible.
plays video games now.
I'm really terrible at them. It's really bad. But I do. My favorite video game is at this point, I think, has to be Mario Kart. Mostly because that's about the only game that I can really play. And not very well at that. But anyways, sorry, I took you off script there. So you have the horrible mom that doesn't like buy you video game cards.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I remember I wanted the Wii, I wanted the Nintendo DS, could never have had it. Never experienced any of the classics. Didn't grow up with Pokemon, none of that. So you might be wondering.
We had Pokemon.
We did not have Pokemon.
No,
I can tell you that for sure.
Okay. All right.
My first Pokemon game I played this year.
I do like the Pokemon game. I like the Pokemon game on the phone where you can catch the little animals. I like that one.
So I didn't grow up playing a lot of video games, so you might be wondering, like, how did I even get in here in the first place? Well, I grew up really wanting to play a lot of video games. I would used to watch my friends play them at parties and on the bus and at school, and I would be like, man, I really wish that I could do this. This looks so fun. And the first video game that I ended up convincing her to finally buy me was Minecraft, and only because I grew up in that age when everyone was going crazy over Minecraft. In 5th grade, me and my best friend, we talked about two things. We talked about American Girl dolls, and we talked about Minecraft for hours. And so I convinced my mom to buy me Minecraft. And honestly, that is what opened up the world of games to me. I had been watching so many videos. I knew how to play, and I love to create in that game. And I know a lot of people like to do like PvP and stuff, but my favorite thing to do in Minecraft is just build things and make things, especially I get into adventure maps that you could download and play and put right in your game, or you can make yourself. That I actually tried my hand at it, and that's what really sort of got me into the idea of creating something that's my own, even if it was in a different game already. I was like, wow, it feels really good to make something that's an experience that's an interactive experience that someone can enjoy, and to tell a story like that really interested me a lot. And so after that, I also got heavily into The Sims, as you might imagine, another sort of like create your own sort of story game. And that's what really made me want to begin game design, because I just loved the feeling of being able to create something.
Yeah, so that's awesome. So what are some of your favorite video games?
So besides the ones I already mentioned, I really like Assassin's Creed Odyssey. I'm just a little obsessed with like Greek gods and stuff, you know how everyone is. And I really like that game. I love to play Project Diva, which is a rhythm game, if you're not sure. I'm kind of crazy good at it now. And I really like...
They're really good at the rhythm games. Another game that I am terrible at, the Miku... What's the name of the Miku game? It's just Miku, right?
It's Project Diva. I just said it.
Is that what it is? Project Diva?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know what the name of the game is. That's terrible.
The other things I like to play are like... Honestly, I just like to play a lot of like story-based games, a lot of like really big adventure games on my PS4. And yeah, I mean, I will play a Star Wars game as well. I will play a Star Wars game.
The Star Wars game was cool. I just couldn't figure out how to do it. Yeah, it's really bad. But anyways, so this is how your kid ends up. And, looking back, it's not all that surprising that Carson is going to be a video game designer, because even when they were growing up, they were very creative, coming up with stories, and there were drawings, and, the dolls were interacting and having lunch, and there's a lot of creativity, in the brain. I'm another thing where I'm not sure I think Carson has 3 grandparents that went to art school, and I ended up a computer scientist. And so I don't know what happened there, but I think it skipped a generation, and Carson ended up with all the creativity in the family.
I just meshed the two.
They meshed the two. Well, that's really the interesting part, is that there's a lot art, we a lot of times we kind of try to divide up technology and arts and creativity, and really they're just two sides of the same coin. I think, from a creativity standpoint, I think I got a lot of creativity from my family and from the art side. But then my dad was also in textiles, and a textile chemist and technologist. So I think I got both sides. So hopefully Carson got some of the tech side and some, and my husband is also a computer scientist. So poor Carson has been subjected to two computer science parents. But anyways, getting back to game development. So what's involved in developing a game? What's the process like? What goes on behind the scenes?
There's a lot of prep work for developing a game. There's a whole lot of things you need to do before you can even start thinking about making your assets or designing your characters or whatever. There's a whole lot of things you need to think about. And the way we typically do that is by either a design log or a design document. A lot of professors tend to prefer design logs, which is basically what it sounds like. You log your ideas every day, and you just keep going, and you put your newest ideas at the top. And there's not really much organization except it's basically like a diary for your game. And so you keep track of what sort of ideas you want to keep and what sort of ideas you want to change. And basically this is writing down all your ideas for your game. Everything that you think you can think of now, you write all down. And then the flip side of that is the design document, which is more organized. You're going to start with picking your title for your game. Actually, a lot of people do that first. You should never do that first. You should do that last. But a design document is much more focused and organized. And with a design document, instead of just adding new things, you're going to be deleting a lot of things and putting them in another section. We also have sections for deleted things in the design document. And so after you make your design document, you have to start thinking about how you're going to actually make your game. And you need to think about, there's a lot you need to think about. So if you're working with a team, you're going to want to figure out what your most riskiest parts of your game design are. What are going to be the things that are hardest to get done? What are the things that we don't even know how to do yet? And then you prototype those. We call this just risk prototyping. You get all of the hardest things out of the way, all the things you think you're going to really struggle with. You make a really simple prototype that you'll be able to fit into your final game. And then once you've done all that, then you can start on actually designing your elements, starting with your art style, and you can start actually programming, and that's when you start building things. Once you have everything sort of laid out, you have a narrative, you have your audience, and then after that, it's user testing. It's iterative user testing. Excuse me. You have to user test along the way as much as you can to make sure that you're going in the right direction. And basically, you just got to keep you got to keep your idea solid in your mind. You got to make sure your game ties together very well. It's a very complicated, it's a very long process. And the good thing about going to Northeastern is that they're really focused on getting you familiar with that process, by getting you started, by making your first design documents for very simple games that you can make by yourself, to working in my game studio class where I'm working on a full-length game with a team of people, and that's the class. So going to Northeastern has really helped me become familiar with the basics of the game design process.
So what is it like to study game design at Northeastern? What kind of classes do you take?
So it's very, very, there's a broad range of stuff that you get to do when you take game design. When you take game design, it's not just about programming. It's not just about art. It's not just about the sound. It's everything. When you get game design, you get to you get to take your time to figure out what you actually want to do when you go out and you get a very specific job on a very specific game. So say eventually you're going to do just sounds or just music tracks on your game. You don't have to decide that when you're in school. You can kind of hop around, and the teachers there are going to be completely accepting of the fact that you have some skills that are better than others. I have a better art skill than programming, but some people in my class have a better programming skill. And then the idea is that you work in teams, you make your skills mesh together, and that's how you get a game out of that. And really the best part of game design is that you get to do so much. There's a lot of fun, actually a lot of fun research you get to do when you make a game, because there's things like design, like how do I want to make this look actually ancient Greece, or do I want to make this look fantasy ancient Greece? Like there's a lot of just like fun decisions that you get to make, and like you can just do whatever you want a lot. You just coming up with ideas, prototyping. There's always something you got to be doing. And if you want to be doing all these different sort of working with all these different mediums, like physical mediums and like technological mediums and like sound and art, like there's so much to do in game design. There's a job for everybody.
That sounds great. So what advice would you give to someone who is considering whether they wanted to go into game design? What would you suggest?
Honestly, I would try your hand at making a Minecraft adventure map if you play Minecraft. If not, try your hand at just like writing an interactive story. Like write a pick your own adventure story. See if you like the feel of that. If you like the feel of that, then you're probably really going to like the feel of designing a game, or even designing specific aspects of the game. Like you could be just a character designer as well, or just an environmental designer. There's a lot of different options if you only like one part of the design process. And yeah, it's the advice that I would give is just try all of the aspects of it. See if you like any of them. And if you do, you're probably going to really enjoy working on games. And also try to work better in groups. Like if you're not a group person, like get better at that, because it's impossible to avoid.
I think actually that's good advice for anyone who wants to go into a tech career. I think the stereotype is that it's people sitting in front of their computers and pounding away at code. And all of these tech fields, if you want to go forward and you want to, basically move up the ladder in a tech career, you have to be able to have those sorts of interpersonal communication skills. You have to develop leadership skills, and you have to be able to write things and do presentations. And I'll have to say I was never very much for English literature classes or presentation, and I had a lot to learn when I went out into the world. I was fortunate to have some friends who are technical writers who set me straight on a good course for writing. Still writing's not hugely my thing, but I've learned to become an effective writer, to write my ideas down so that I can communicate them with others. And I think that's great advice for anybody who's going into... That's actually a
really good point, because in game design, we're heavily in need of people who can write really well. Not just like narrative writing, but also just like just getting your ideas clearly on a paper for your design document. You want that to be as clear as possible so other people can understand what you're trying to say. And so we need a lot of people that can write well in that style, and then we need people that can write well in a narrative style. And so there's just a lot of writing involved in game design as well. Do you want to do some comments? Sure.
Yeah, should we take some Q&A? Let me see. Have we got some questions out there? I'm going to check my Slido. So we're getting a lot of great feedback. This is awesome. Thank you so much for all the positive comments. Really enjoying this from Natasha. This is great. Keep it up from Al.
Figuring out how to solve a problem is completely a creative process. That's absolutely 100% correct. I agree with that. Twitch and compete in a game. It wouldn't be much of a show.
It would be funny. It would be funny. People. So there's these people that play video games badly on YouTube, and maybe we should start one of those. On Mario Kart, from Lauren, on Mario Kart, my mom wanted me to be Toadette for Halloween.
I love Toadette. She's so cute.
I like the cat ones. I'm a crazy cat lady, so we're both crazy cat ladies. All right, so I am going to let's bring on Helena and John if they're ready.
Thank you for all the comments.
Thank you so much for the positive feedback. We'll come back a little later with Carson and with Helena, and we'll take a few more question and answers. So what do you think, Helena? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready to do your demo?
Yeah,
I'm so excited for this. So Helena is going to show us a demo of how to use NiFi on a Raspberry Pi.
It's funny, you were talking about the presentation skills, right? And so this is actually, she actually put together the presentation, right? And then we've been working on it all day to make sure that, you know, she's got her note cards ready and everything. So.
Yeah, and this is so John and I are both solutions engineers, and we do these demos all the time. And live demos are like, I don't want to scare Helena here, but live demos are always we always have the backup PowerPoint slides, because whatever can or will happen will happen. I remember so I'm officially old, and I was in the audience when Steve Jobs had the Next computer and was doing a demo, and he made a joke about how the demo would probably crash, and then about 5 minutes later it crashed. So anyways, but Helena, I know will be better here. So take it away, Helena.
Okay. So a Raspberry Pi is a small computer that can fit in your pocket, and it allows you to connect a keyboard, mouse, or monitor to it, and it comes with Wi-Fi and wire connections, and it uses a Raspberry Pi operating system, or an OS. And an OS runs and manages a computer's memory and processes and allows you to interact easily with a computer. The Raspberry Pi pins can be used to connect things to the Raspberry Pi. There are certain pins for power and ground. There are pins for GPIO, or General Purpose Input/Output. This is to get data and send data. NiFi is a data flow tool. It's an easy way to do things with data and no programming. It puts configurations in processors and connects them. Processors are rectangular boxes shown on the screen that act like a function in programming, and data shows in something called a flow file. A flow file is a data record that has both data and metadata. So here's our setup, and the temperature sensor is connected to 3 pins on the Raspberry Pi. The blue wire is the data and connects to the pin labeled GPIO4. The white wire is the power and connects to the pin labeled 5V, or 5 volts. The purple wire is the ground wire and connects to the pin labeled GND. And we have a picture shown if you want to look at it. So that's the Raspberry Pi, that white thing with the circuit board, and then those wires are connected to the pins. So here's the Python code, and in Python it first gets the data from the temperature sensor, and then it reads the data, and it splits the data up into parts, and then it adds a timestamp to temperature data, and then it writes to a log file. So here's our NiFi setup, and first it gets the data that's printed to the log file, and it changes the data type to JSON. And we use JSON because it uses a thing called key value pair, and it's a lot easier to manipulate the data. And then we merge to one file, and then it converts from Celsius to Fahrenheit. So here we just have a picture of the Celsius to Fahrenheit. So on the left we have Celsius, and on the right we have the Fahrenheit. So it's just converted.
So before we get into the demo, right? I mean, you and I worked on this over the summer primarily, right? And then we decided to come together and put this presentation together. What was the most fun about doing this project?
I thought it was just like really cool to learn about the Raspberry Pi and how to use NiFi, because this stuff is just interesting to me. So I always thought it was really cool to do that.
Yeah. And you were saying you wanted to do computer science, but now after listening to Carson talk, you started saying gaming sounds pretty cool. Game design, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the game design does sound pretty cool. So why don't we go over here? I'm going to stop sharing this screen and come over to our other screen so you can do your actual demo. So as that's coming up, right? I mean, you know, we sat down, we wrote some Python code together. You knew none of this beforehand, right?
Yeah, no.
No. And learning NiFi was kind of neat because you know, what do you think's the big difference between like doing NiFi or writing the Python, right? Since we did both of those.
Well, NiFi is just like those big blocks for the processors, and then Python is just all the code written out.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot easier to use NiFi instead.
Which one do you think was faster to build, the Python code that we built together or the NiFi stuff?
The NiFi.
Yeah, NiFi's a heck of a lot easier. All right, so go ahead. We're sharing now.
So here is the actual Python code that we showed. And this is using an editor called Vim. And I think it's pretty cool because it's really colorful and it just looks cool.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah, you got it. You got it. You know what you're doing now.
So here we're going to run the program. So I'm just going to hit up and then, oh my God, what did I do?
You did it twice. There you go.
And then return. And now you'll see all the data coming in for the temperature. And that's pretty cool.
All right, let me get this big for you, and then you can go through your pieces. All right.
So now we're just going to show the NiFi consuming the data. So this processor gets tails the log file, and all we had to do was put where to find the log file. I'm going there.
Okay, all right.
In files to tail right here. And then in this file, it just changes the text to JSON right here. And this one merges 25 files into one, and we reset it so it has to be at least 25 files to make just one. And this one just converts from Celsius to Fahrenheit. And we just go and use NiFi's expression language on temp, and you just get the field value, multiply it by 1.8, and you add 32. And now we can see the data. Let's go to list queue. And then you can hit on one of the eyes to view it. And we're going to go to formatted. And now you can see all your temperatures with the dates and the time.
So it's 73 degrees in our basement right now. That's pretty awesome. You can see 1833, right? So that was about a minute ago. And some of that data. All right.
I think that's it.
And that's it. And let's stop sharing. So, I mean, you know, it was cool because we actually got to hook the sensor up, right? And then we got to actually play around with the data a little bit. What do you think would make it a little bit cooler? Like, what do you think we could build, like, next step, right? Now you've learned how to set up a Raspberry Pi. You've learned how to hook a sensor up to it. You've learned how to bring the sensor data in. You've learned how NiFi can easily do things that you don't have to program or code. But then what would be the next thing that you'd want to do? What do you think?
I think because we use a sensor for temperature, we can use one for humidity, and then we can maybe do a test with, like, I don't know, a dehumidifier and then a humidifier, and see how fast when we change the two out, and then how fast it registers on that Raspberry Pi. I think that'd be pretty cool.
That'd be cool, right? Like a little experiment. How much? How quickly does it change the humidity?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be pretty neat. Yeah, that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
Did you have fun doing this project?
Yeah, I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I did too, actually. So for those that don't know me, I'm a huge NiFi nerd. So the fact that my kid enjoys it too is that, of course, makes me very, very happy. All right.
Yeah.
So I think we can bring Carolyn back on. Maybe do we have some questions? I don't have a Q&A thing screen up. So
I have to unmute myself. So we don't have too many questions, but there's really a lot of positive comments you know, good luck. I love risk prototyping. So there's just a lot of really positive comments in the Slido. So Helena, I'm just like, this is amazing. You did a great job on your demo. This is really awesome.
Thanks.
So, and you had fun doing this?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool. Yeah.
So what was the process? Like how did you develop this demo? So how did you learn, like, first of all, how did you learn what is a Raspberry Pi?
Like my dad one day said, "Oh, I got this Raspberry Pi thing, and we can like build stuff on it." I was like, "Okay, cool," and then we started using it. And one day we just like went downstairs and then we hooked it up. And I think he showed me. It was like, I don't know, like a year ago. So I don't know if was it. I don't think it was NiFi. I think he showed me Python, and I saw all the code. And I thought that.
Oh, so you saw the Python. So
Yeah.
do you program in Python?
Yeah, I think we like actually like typed up something.
Yeah, we did a little bit of program. I mean, of course, I'm a Python guy, so more hand-holding on the Python than the NiFi, right? But yeah, she wanted to learn how to code a little bit too, so we started building some code in Python. This is before this project, so we hadn't even hooked the sensor up yet, and we were just showing how to manipulate things with the Raspberry Pi, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. So what do you think? Do you think you might want to go into a tech?
Yeah, I
mean, when you get to.
Yeah, like I've always really liked math and science, so whatever I'm doing with that, I just thought it was really cool to do code, and I wanted to start getting into like smaller projects that like other kids can do. And I've gotten some projects like that, and I want to get started on it, and I thought it was just really cool. So if I could do that when I grow up, then that'd be fun,
That's great. That is so awesome. Well, you did a great job with that. And I guess at this point, I'm just gonna check the questions one more time.
Yeah, we only had a 10-minute demo, so it wasn't like a standard John demo. Helena's much more efficient than I am.
Jenna wants to know, I've wondered if I could make myself a sensor that tells me when I should water my plants. I think this is a really good thing because I am terrible at the plants. I'm just like, my plants are like the house plants. Carson, when they went to college, asked me to water the plants, and I failed miserably, and the poor plant died. And it was like some sort of cactus too. It's terrible. I definitely need this. So what do you think, Helena?
I mean, I think you can. I don't like that. Yeah, it comes with a bunch of different like wires and then the sensors. So if you're trying to like, I don't know like how you do it exactly. If you're like trying to figure out when it needs to be watered, or like if you're trying to like set up a time every day to do it.
So there's a soil sensor, right? So this is a soil moisture sensor.
This is good.
So what you could do is we could actually hook up the soil moisture sensor to a Raspberry Pi, right? Run that through NiFi and actually have essentially like a limit and trigger it. Essentially send you an email or a Slack notification.
Maybe we could just get NiFi to water it for you. What do you think?
Well, Tim Span definitely could do that. I'm pretty sure that we could do that. So we could probably automate that. We'd have to hook it up to a servo motor with some sort of water, but I think we could do that actually. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna work on that one.
Sounds possible.
So
they can make an automatic cat food feeder. They can do it with watering plants.
Yes. So Hulk Hands wants to know, Helena, is there a wireless connection to the Raspberry Pi? And if so, could we do this with the sensor with a big weather balloon or drone? I don't know. What do you think?
It's a big question. I don't know if it's wireless. I mean,
yeah, it's got Wi-Fi.
I mean, yeah, it's got Wi-Fi. I think it's just the HDMI that sets up is just for a monitor. So if you're trying to like look at it, so I mean, I guess you could do that.
So I mean, like realistically, if you wanted to attach this to a weather balloon to pull in the data, you would need to have a network connection. So you can buy a 4G network card or SIM card, and they actually do have Raspberry Pi modules to do that. So it is possible.
So there is real applications of doing something like this. So so for example, the utilities are flying drones over, and John probably can talk about this better than I can, but the utility companies are basically building drones that take pictures of different parts of their infrastructure, and then they have AI algorithms that determine whether there's a defect in, say, like a pipeline. And this is like really important because you don't want to have water leaking out or oil. So this is actually a real use case of having the drones, and Tim Span has had a big meetup at one point about drones and bringing back video footage. Okay. Jenna is asking if the sensors are in the Cana kit or in another kit.
We got them in a different kit. So SOU is the kit I got. It's relatively cheap. Yeah, you can hold it up to the camera. And the camera's right there.
Okay.
So that was the kit we got. I think it was like $40, something like that.
Yeah, it just has a bunch of other.
Yeah, the Raspberry Pis are super cheap, and people do just crazy things with these Raspberry Pis, like run Hadoop clusters on them, and so Jim S says bravo, just bravo, and Andre wants to know, Helena, what first steps would you recommend for other kids who just want to learn Python?
Okay. Maybe just, I don't know. You can maybe like watch a tutorial or something and then kind of get to know it. Or if you want to try to use like NiFi to set it up or something, so you don't have to like write out every single thing. So
I think the tutorial is not a bad idea. There's a lot of stuff online for kids, and
I'm sure they have something that's like, it's not so hard to do. You don't have to be very good at tech to learn it. It's probably like pretty easy terms to know. It's just, and they might have stuff for kids. I'm pretty sure there's something out there.
Remember Bitbox?
Bitbox, yes, that's another coding thing. So it's not necessarily just Python, but it teaches you a bunch of other things to do for coding, and you can make video games, and you can do a lot of other stuff on there.
Yeah, I think that was your first introduction to coding. We got her this thing called Bitbox years ago, and they send you new modules every month, and it's basically teaches you the basics of functions and things. So very modular in design. It's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, there were some programming languages that you learned.
Yeah, I learned Python. Python is super intuitive for people who've never like done code before. It's very like it's not hard to look at. There's not a whole lot of like parentheses or like, and it just makes sense.
I like parentheses.
I know, I like parentheses too, but like people who like children. And,
I like curly braces too.
People who have never looked at Java before, like they don't like looking at Java. I don't like looking at Java. I like drag and drop programming.
So you did a couple of those programming languages. What was the game one?
What do you mean?
There was like a program where you can make the games without programming.
Yeah, so there for game design, so there's a lot of like in game design. There's a lot of things that we do to get around actual programming because not a lot of people who do game design actually really like programming at all. So a lot of like programs for
Scratch. That's
Scratch.
What it was.
Yeah, well, obviously Scratch is like a learning program, but you can definitely make games with that. It's like your drag and drop. But basically, like a lot of like Unity and Unreal Engine, they all have the option for drag and drop programming. That it really reminds you of looking at Scratch. Game designers really love to get around doing actual programming. Like for example, in a lot of our classes we use Twine. which is like it's basically it makes an HTML sort of form for you, and it's mostly used for game designers who want to make sort of a choose your own adventure game, mostly text based. It doesn't really support images that well. It's mostly just for making really advanced, sort of elaborate storylines that branch off in many different paths. And they have a lot of built-in code that you can just sort of like click on and add what you want. It types it all out for you. So there's a lot of ways that game designers get around doing real coding.
Yeah, and if like you guys did mention about Scratch, I think it is just like a drag and drop. So if you just want to do, I think it's made by Google, it's free. If you just want to like try it out and not try to do like a Bitbox subscription, if you just want to try it out and see if you're interested in it, it's really easy, and you could do like animation, and yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for if you've already done Scratch and you want to try something bigger, like I would definitely recommend either Unreal Engine, which is free, or Blender, which is also free. Blender's mostly for like 3D rendering, but you can also make games in it. Unreal is super intuitive for making games. There's a lot of just like basic assets in there you can get right into just like making whatever you want. We managed to make, with a team of like 5 people over 2 weeks, we made a like semi-functioning game, like functioning enough so that you could win and lose and do all the things that you need to be considered a game. And like that's hard in a 3D rendering world. It's really hard to make a 3D game that is fully like 100% functional with 5 people in 2 weeks. It's a task that's insane. So the fact that we were able to do that as people who had never really designed a game before in something like that is really incredible. So like if you ever really want to just jump right into like making a 3D game or something, you just want to mess around, like Unreal is great for that.
And there's a lot of data in games too, so especially the massive multiplayer games on the platform, there's a lot of data analytics behind those.
There's a lot of data, and game designers, we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, so there's really a lot about looking at the fairness of the game, and if there's one side of the game is one side of the game is getting more strong than the other side of the game, kind of balancing things out so that it's still fun for everybody.
User testing produces a whole bunch of data that's really important to analyze, that is really hard to analyze, because it's mostly because there's a lot of different user testing you can do, like just based on just like numerical user testing, like ones that have like true answers, and then like user testing where they're like, I just didn't like this. And so there's a lot of data that's kind of hard to sort through when it comes to like people's opinions on the game, or like how well they did, or how fair it is, like you said. And it's tough. There's a lot of things you got to test for to make sure you're right, and then a lot of data comes out of that.
I'm gonna check one more time for questions. Bomi, awesome. Helena, best knife eye demo ever. Wow.
Wow.
I take offense to that.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up here. I just want to say I'm so impressed by these 2 young people. So awesome. And not just because I'm related. So proud of these 2. It's not easy. It's not easy to get up on YouTube and talk about all of this stuff. And there was a lot of preparation involved. And I think that they both did really, really awesome. I hope that we've inspired you to try some tech and do something new and make some knife eye demos. Maybe we'll have some automated plant waterers out there, and I will stop killing plants. Anyways, I just want to say thank you to both of the participants here. Again, lots of preparation, probably some nerves in here. I know for a fact that Carson was never was always a little shy and never really wanted to get up and talk about things. And I'm so impressed that they've been able to, to do this today. And Helena, awesome job. Best NiFi demo ever. Sorry, John.
It's all right. I prefer that she's better than me, right?
We have to keep improving, right? We have to keep improving the next generation.
Now I'm coming after you. Now I got to make a better demo than you.
Well, this is great, folks. Thank you very much for joining us here tonight. Look for your surveys on Meetup. We'd love to hear from you if there's anything else you want to hear about, topics. We're here for you to help you learn about tech, to share our experiences, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you very much, and have a great night.